everyone, and welcome back to the Grimm Chronicles. My name is Kathy Grimm, and the channel is The Grimm Reader. And this is my weekly reading update. I think it's episode 29 for the reading since last Tuesday. So I've been focusing on two books, a German book that is kind of still connected to Jane Austen in July, the Before the Storm by Theodor Fontane, written in, I think, 1878, but taking place during the Napoleonic Wars in Europe, so 1813, 1814 in this area of Prussia. But I haven't really been reading that one much this week because I have focused all my attention on trying to finish this sort of accidental novel I stumbled into, and that is absolutely amazing, and I'm just so glad I did. So I told you last week about how I had found on Twitter this novel by Rikki Ducornet, and she's very well thought of, but I had never heard of her, which just goes to show how this is so many different sort of little groups of writers, and we can't know everyone, and of course it turns out that Leaf by Leaf one of Chris's favorite authors, and just doing internet research, she's really well established, and she's very well thought of as an artist. And I told you this last week. And there's different terms that come up with her. So postmodern, avant-garde, which kind of, I think, deters you a little bit from the book that I'm reading, which is really quite readable. It's not sort of, it is experimental, and it is kind of deeply entwined in a lot of sometimes rather obscure or oblique sort of echoes of literary genres specifically. But that doesn't mean you need to know any of that stuff, and I definitely didn't know all of this stuff until I started doing research on her to enjoy the novel. Now, I think that if you know more, you might enjoy it more. In a certain sense, it's like reading anything difficult like Joyce, in a certain sense Proust, but she's actually much easier than Proust. It's much more of a tale because of the fact that she's, let me get into the actual novel itself, called Fountains of Neptune. She's one of the sort of genealogies she's wanting to immerse herself in is that of the fairy tale and the fable and myth making. And when I say those terms, I want to connect them because I think that's what she's doing too. It's a rather psychoanalytical book, so, and also psychological. So it's a sort of, and in a certain sense also philosophical, but it's more psychological because it's about this young boy who it centers on a certain childhood trauma to do with his parents, and then he's trying to figure out his own identity in a certain sense, even though it sounds like when I say that, you think of something completely different than what you're going to get, which is a very sort of enjoyable, sometimes raucous, fairy tale-esque tale of this boy's life. And the frame is him being in a coma and having to be kind of slowly coaxed out of the coma by this, it's funny, she's a funny Viennese sounding name, and she's called the world's only hydro, something to do with water therapy. Like, she's a therapist, but she does it with water, because this is part of a cycle that Ducornet wrote, the tetralogy of, based on the 4 elements. I'm looking at my notes here. And so I've always had this affinity for things to do with alchemy, and so this sort of a postmodern take on alchemical tropes and metaphors is just right up my alley. And I jumped into the third one. So this is the water one, the Fountains of Neptune. But then there's other ones to do with fire, I'm assuming, and the earth and air, I guess. I'll have to check them out. I'll get back to you. But so it's as if water in all its forms is a controlling part of, or is sort of the dominant motif of the book. And she weaves it in a very playful, fun way. She's extremely inventive in her use of language, and also a good writer. So, she's a consummate stylist, but she's also very playful. And I think the playfulness is where she's bringing in other genres. So I was trying to think, so what does this remind me of? So there's a lot of fairy tale motifs, specifically him falling asleep, the main guy, Nicholas, this little boy, who then is an older man, sort of retelling his tale. So Sleeping Beauty is one of it. And I just had a connection, knowing the French Sleeping Beauty. Because another main motif is that of the seductive, dark, not entirely evil, but alluring in a perhaps not undangerous way woman. The sea monster, I don't even know how to say it in French, the veuve. So kind of the evil feminine aspect is another sort of guiding myth or motif of the book, and it's connected. So the word, I'll have to do an analogy of the word exactly, but I know that in the Sleeping Beauty, the French one, unlike the Grimm, and it is actually a French tale more than it's definitely more of a French tale in terms of where it comes from, historically speaking. There is an ogress, a female ogre, and ogres, from the little bit of research that I've done, are more of a French folk monster than anything else. And so the ogre comes in here too, and is connected to this female entity. So fairy tales, fables, mythology, anything to do with water and Neptune. And also, just in reading, I'm looking at my notes here, the cast of characters are very they just kind of plumped down before you, and you're immersed in this funny, raucous world that is fun to read and also moves along at a nice pace. So they're colorful, they're exaggerated, they're definitely memorable. And she plays with their names in a funny way. And so people that the text kind of reminds me of, or the writing, is Angela Carter is definitely one that comes to mind. So the sort of a modern retelling of fairy tales, although it's not as overt, it's much more sort of going off in her own areas. But the writing, Carter has her own style, that's for sure, but there are similarities there, I think, specifically in their embracing something, and this might make them a little dated, I don't really know. I know that Ducornet has moved on from the tetralogy to doing less mythologically infused works. So maybe this was an earlier thing. The Neptune book was 89. So there's sort of an embracing of, or wanting to carve out space for female sexuality, female desire in an open and non-judgmental way, definitely sort of anti-patriarchal in that sense, wanting to sort of subvert the patriarchy in this playful, poetic way, which is probably another reason why I like it. Let's see. Yeah, childhood trauma is at the core, but it doesn't sort of dominate in an overt way. It's sort of there, and it comes and goes, and it is always there and sort of in the background. Yeah, so it's a very, very interesting book. So another person that she is, and in an interview she's even admitted this, and as someone that I want to get back into reading, the philosopher Gaston Bachelard. Now, I haven't done a lot of work on him, but there is this book that he has written that some of you may be familiar with about, it's about dwellings and homes, and I'm blanking on the title of it, but that's probably his most famous work, Poetics of Space, I think it's called. Anyway, he's someone who also wrote books on the elements, kind of connecting literary, poetic takes on the elements to philosophy or philosophical sort of ruminations on this. So right up my alley too. And so she's also a poet, and I haven't read any of her poems, and she's also an artist. So definitely a great find, and we'll kind of go into, this really will go down as the year of finding these people that will turn into projects. And maybe I should just cut myself some slack, and being a slow reader means that I'm taking time to read up on these people and think about things and making connections. So, but I also do get very distracted with my silly hobbies and just thinking about the fall semester teaching also. So yeah. So other things that it remind me, another sort of text that it does remind me of, specifically because you have this sort of young, quote unquote, innocent boy with this really wacky cast of characters. So it kind of reminds me of Lewis Carroll. And also this sort of playfulness of language and making up words. One of the characters, his other mother, this sort of archetypal woman in the kitchen cooking and making delicious food for him, Rose, she has a tendency to always, what's the malaprop? She misuses words over and over again. She'll say a word, and it's almost like it's like a code. You have to figure out what the right word is. So she's always misspeaking. I don't have a good example right now. I should have prepared a little excerpt for you. This is one thing that Chris always does. So, but I haven't done that yet, so I'll leave it. I won't try and do it now. But a really interesting, exciting new author that I found, and yeah. So that's that. So, and I will try and get back to Before the Storm. And I'm also hoping that I can maybe get back to the big novel that I put aside, the Margaret Young. We'll see about that. Meanwhile, Garbaugust is coming along. And so, well, the silly book coming in the mail, I'll tell you what it is. And I hopefully, well, besides the one that I won from Criminolly, it's a Star Trek novel in picture form. So Kelly at my Books I'm Not Reading had done this tag or something to do with, I think that there was some video where she talked about Star Trek, and she wondered what photo novels are. And I remember photo novels from this silly German magazine that all young people read in Germany called Bravo. And they would have these silly kind of photo novels, and it was just something that, it's just a comic with pictures and then bubbles. And so this is what this Star Trek is. So that's like a prime thing that I could read for Garbaugust. Not to say that Star Trek's really garbage, but you know, it's formulaic and it's mass literature, and I think the fact that it's basically a picture with words is a little, you know, it's not really a novel. I think that's kind of funny that they call it a novel. And then what else? The other books that I might read, or at least start, I don't know, I may not be able to finish it, but I've always been interested in V.C. Andrews' sort of horror, creepy book called Flowers in the Attic. And it's one of those, I don't know, I know a little bit about what happens, but not really. And I was thinking that might be a good choice for Garbaugust. I might try it. And I mean, I think that'll be it, because I'll have that. I'll have the Star Trek that I'll try, and then I'll have the book that Criminolly is sending to me, and that's plenty for Garbaugust. I don't know about the German one that I downloaded. We'll see. And I think I've given up on the idea of making a whole video about German garbage. It would require more research than I'm willing to give to it, but just suffice to say that there's a lot of it, and basically it boils down to very formulaic, the churning out type books that are very, very popular, but they're the kind of thing that you don't really see people on buses reading. I think people do sort of know that they're looked down upon, and so you sort of read them when people are not watching or something. I don't know. I'm not sure. And I think that's about it. On the little chatting place that I am sometimes to be found by my Discord, we were talking about, some people were bringing up Don DeLillo, and I don't even know. I've read one Don DeLillo here, White Noise, and I quite enjoyed this one. It's been a while. But then they were talking about, well, which one should I read? I did want to, and they mentioned a number of novellas that I might check out, shorter works, if you don't want to commit to something longer. And those titles were Point Omega, Zero K, The Body Artist, and The Names. So I might check out those. And the only other one that we have on our shelves, and I am kind of interested in it, is Libra. So this is about I guess it's about Lee Harvey Oswald, right? And it's a novel, or is it just haunting and brilliant? And since I am interested in, I had a phase, you know, I read books. I was a little obsessed with the assassination as a young person. And I remember my mother always saying, well, you can tell people you were alive when Kennedy was still alive. Barely. Not consciously. I was born in September, and then in November he was assassinated. Anyway, of the same year, 1963, of course. And so I wanted to, the reason why I'm showing it is I might read this to someone, and I wanted to ask you all, have you read any Don DeLillo, or would you recommend him, or would you put him in the same camp as someone like Roth, whom I don't like and don't really want to read anymore? Even though I perhaps have not given him enough credit, or I just should give him another try, but the things that I've read and heard about him, I don't make me want to read Roth at all. And was there anything else that I wanted to talk about? I'm trying to think here. There was something else, but I think that's it. No, it's not coming to me if there is anything else. So let me know your thoughts on Don DeLillo and V.C. Andrews. Have you ever read V.C. Andrews? Am I missing out? Oh, that reminds me, the Star Trek Fotonovel, it says it was written by Harlan Ellison. Now, he is a fairly well thought of, I don't know, as a person, he may not be that great, but science fiction writer. I don't think I've ever read any Harlan Ellison, but I was a little bit like, he wrote that? But yeah, I guess he did. So since I can't think of what else, I have the sense that there was something else I wanted to tell you guys about, but it's not coming to me, so I will let it go. And I hope everyone's doing well, and I will see you next week. Hopefully I'll have finished this book, and I'll be well on my way with the other books that I'm, either the Fontane or the something else. We'll see how things go. Thank you all for watching, and please say hi or something in the comments. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.